Hello YouTube and welcome to Dumpster Linux Part 7. Yes, we're going to be doing a little bit more yakking because I want to explain some of the thinking that's going on and some of the reasons why I'm doing what I'm doing, because if you don't agree with those reasons then you probably don't want to follow this particular path. So this is all about hopefully making things clearer and giving you the power to make the choices that you want to make. Now, yeah, there's a gap between Dumpster Linux 6 and 7 because there were some announcements that I was waiting to come out. And I have those announcements. It came out today, though the last one that I was waiting for. And there's going to be two key subjects to this video. One is going to be Secure Boot, and the other one is going to be what Canonical are doing with the Unity interface. We're going to start with Secure Boot. First of all, what is Secure Boot? Well, when you start a computer, and I am deliberately making this a little bit more simplified, the computer, the hardware, has the BIOS that's on board. During a certain point in starting, the BIOS then finds the operating system on the hard disks and loads the bootloader, which then loads the operating system, and the bootloader is more or less part of the operating system. Now, how malware works is by getting in between these two. Malware. So instead of the motherboard passing control to the bootloader, it winds up passing control to the malware, which then passes control to the bootloader. So basically you've got some nasty programming already active in the computer before your operating system even starts. Now that means that the malware is in the perfect position to completely nobble any antivirus that you've loaded on the operating system. So, Secure Boot basically runs on signatures, and basically the bootloader has to be signed. So the BIOS will only pass control to something which has been signed. It's on a whitelist. So when the malware attempts to start, which isn't signed, hopefully, the BIOS says, "You're not on my list of signatories, I'm not passing control to you," and stops. Gives the user an error, something's wrong here, and just stops. Doesn't allow the machine to start. So that's what's the basics of what Secure Boot is doing. Does it stand much chance? I don't think so. And these are pretty much many of the reasons why a lot of the professionals are saying it's a complete waste of time, and are saying that Microsoft are forcing the hardware vendors to switch this on deliberately in order to gain a competitive advantage over Linux. Now, for one start, the system behind this UEFI Secure Boot has been in the public domain for many years. It's nothing new. If you go into the commercial areas, you'll see Secure Boot has been used for some hardware because it's part of a package, and the vendors don't want the people who've bought the hardware using a different operating system or using the operating system on a different piece. It is present in commercial environments. It just hasn't been in the consumer. That's really thrown me off. It hasn't been in the consumer arena before. It's been there, but nobody's forced it to be switched on. So, the long story short with this is there's nothing to stop the malware from forging a signature, really. I mean, you can see all the stuff like the closed things that have been hacked. The Sony PlayStation got blown to smithereens. The Apple iPhone locked down, blown to smithereens. You know, once people actually start turning on and using Secure Boot, that just gives the bad guys reason to go after Secure Boot. It gives them a reason to start hacking it. And all this stuff pretty much is in the public domain and has been for a number of years. You know, it's not exactly the newest security technology out there. And also, various versions of Linux will be using a get-around in order to get around not needing to be signed, because the bootloader has a separation between the operating system. All they will do is use a bootloader which is already signed, if that makes sense, and then put their different operating system on the arse end of it. these are the sorts of reasons why people think this is just going to be bananas. It's not really going to be as effective in this day and age as they believe. And because of that, many people are thinking that Microsoft are forcing companies to turn on Secure Boot on their hardware just in order to hack people off. People like us dumpster folk. Because when we get hold of second-hand computers and try and load another piece of software on it, which it didn't originally come with, Secure Boot will probably get in the way. So the wider debate over what use Secure Boot will be is still raging, to be perfectly honest. And while for some systems, in other words, systems running Intel processors and systems running AMD processors, there is the option to turn it off. For newer machines that are running ARM processors, which are going to be the low power equivalent, low power stuff that's already in our phones and tablets, to put it mildly, that will become a problem because we won't be able to switch it off. It is a stipulation that if a manufacturer comes up with an ARM computer and they want to get the Windows 8 certification for it, they're going to have to manufacture it in a way where Secure Boot is on and nobody can turn it off. And that's raised its own questions as well. So keep an eye out for Secure Boot and keep an eye out for what's going to happen. Who knows in the long term. There's no sign of Microsoft bowing yet, but I've got the feeling that they're going to wind up having to bow to pressure because there's just so much of it, particularly of why they are forcing ARM, one company, to force it to be on, and the other companies, Intel, the other processors, Intel and AMD, haven't got to. They are able to turn it off. So there's a lot of questions being asked, and this one is going to be set to run for a while. So we move on. As you probably worked out in part 6, there was a bit of a discussion about the results, the search results from Amazon being part of what gets returned. Now, Canonical have basically extended that. In future versions, they are intending on including search results of more services other than Amazon. And you can bet that the Electronic Frontier Foundation didn't pretty much like the sound of that. This is a report from the Register, and I'm just reading sections of it here. The Electronic Frontier Foundation has called Canonical's integration of the Ubuntu 12.10 search feature with the results from Amazon, quote, a major privacy problem, unquote. The EEF highlighted a number of situations where you could be searching your Ubuntu PC's hard drive and wouldn't want results beamed out to the Canonical server that then sucks back in Amazon matches. These include searching for the latest version of your resume at work, CV I call it, that's why I tripped over that one, looking for a domestic abuse hotline, divorce documents, looking for documents with file names that will give away trade secrets or activism plans, or even tracking down that one piece of porn you just can't seem to get your hands on. Quote, there are many reasons why you wouldn't want any of these search queries to leave your computer, unquote, the group said. Quote, Canonical is not clear about which third parties it sends data to and when, but it appears that many of these third parties only get searched in certain circumstances, unquote, EEF wrote. The long story short is that Canonical sees and continues to see, despite ongoing protest from people and other places like the EEF, they don't see that they're doing anything wrong. They see that asking, feeding search queries out to the internet and feeding back what comes back, they seem to think that that's perfectly acceptable. It was only public protest that meant that they installed a kill switch in the final version that went out to people. And you're going to be probably well advised, if you do stick with the Unity interface, to get hold of the privacy settings, find that option and turn it off. For a number of reasons, as said before and as said now, basically. There are times and documents and things that you're going to want to search for, and you do not want those search results to go out to the internet. There is the underlying question of who could be watching. Well, it depends on a number of things, really. For a start, how computer savvy your partner is. If you're doing these sorts of things at work and you are using Unity at work, then, you know, these things do get recorded. At home, I don't know where the history of such searches are going to be stored. Like in your browser, it's dead easy. There are privacy options, you just hit the privacy option, bingo, job done. You can clear your cache, your history, and all the rest of it. But I haven't yet, and to be honest I haven't searched, found out where such a history is stored for the searches in Ubuntu Unity. And I've got no interest in it because I've got no interest in using it while it's doing this sort of thing. But my solution to this is to use Ubuntu as the basis and then change the Unity desktop for the Lubuntu desktop. And that's what we're going to do in part 8. See you then.